Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial here on this channel. Today we're going to be looking at how to do screen replacements, or planar tracking as it's also known. Now, I've been receiving a lot of comments from you guys saying that the tutorials I do are very intensive on your system and that your systems can't really do the things I'm doing. So today we're going to be doing some visual effects that don't really require that powerful of hardware to run. And so let's go ahead and get started and have some fun with it. The final result was at the beginning of the video, and up on the screen now is the recording I shot. If you want that recording, the download link is in the description below if you want to follow along, so make sure you go do that. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop into Blender itself. We are on 2.9, so we're just going to come up here to this little plus icon. Then in the VFX tab, we're going to go to motion tracking. So I actually just released a motion tracking tutorial. The link to that is down in the description below and top to the right of the screen right now. So make sure you go view that if you want some more beginner level tracking. Today we're going to be doing planar tracking, however, which isn't that hard. So let's go ahead and open up our footage by hitting that open button right here. With my footage now open, you'll notice that the colors are kind of off. It's a little too overexposed, and so what we're going to do is come to this render properties right here, go to color management and change it from filmic to standard. Now, unlike my other tutorials, we're actually going to be staying in the Eevee render engine, and we don't really have to change around any of these settings right here. What we do want to change around is actually some output properties real quick, and so we can come down. Instead of the 24 FPS that Blender sets by default, my video is shot in a 29.97 FPS, and so we just want to match that. So click on that, and then 29.97 is what we're going to go with. That just matches it to our clip. And so now, coming into the actual motion tracking tab, we can go into this window right here and then hit the set scene frames button. This will basically just set our end frame to be the correct frame, and then we can notice that the playback is not as smooth. It's a bit choppy, and so a way to change that is to actually come up here and hit this Prefetch button. So that will basically move all the frames of your video into the memory, just so we get some smooth playback like this. So just one quick thing to note about this clip, we can see that we actually have our TV like this, but you can also see some of the reflections in the background. Now, I could have put a green image on the TV itself for kind of like a green screen effect, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to keep those reflections in order to blend it in later. So let's go ahead and get into the tracking. If you are new to tracking, first make sure to go in the link in the description and watch that video. But second, we can come to this menu and kind of play around with some of these settings. We actually have the correct pattern size and search, as well as the motion model and match. We just have to check the normalize, and in this tracking settings extra, we're just going to make the correlation to a 0.9. This basically tells Blender that it needs to be 90% sure that the track is correct for it to continue tracking the point. And so to start tracking, let's actually come all the way and go to frame 1. Now we can go ahead and start adding some points. Now, for screen replacement, we actually need 4 points instead of the 8 for actual camera tracking. So to get started, we're just going to go ahead and hold Control and then click our corners like this. This will add a tracking dot. You can also come over here to this tracker settings. It kind of zooms in a bit just so you can position that as close as you need to be. It needs to be right on the point, and so now we can just do that to all of our 4 corners. Now that we have all the trackers on our corners, we can go ahead and hit the A button to select all of them. Then we're going to make sure we're on the first keyframe and go ahead and hold Control and press T to track the markers. So if we scrub throughout our clip, we can see that our markers are pretty good. Besides this one down here, you can actually see on this graph that this point kind of goes haywire a couple of times. So we just want to change around that a bit. So if we select this point, let's kind of zoom into our graph and see what's going on. Also zoom in up here, and if we go a couple frames forward, we can see it jumps to this spot up here, and so we actually want to move this back. So by hitting G, you can move this back on that frame, and then again you can just hold Control T and that should track it forward again. So now we can look at this graph below. And we can notice no anomalies. Basically, an anomaly would be like this. This point would be going extremely up or down, and so we don't want that. Let me just undo that real quick. And so you just want to double check and make sure all your points are tracked correctly. Okay, so now that we have all of our points tracked, we can actually come to the solve panel, and instead of solving the actual camera motion, since we're doing planar tracking, we're going to come up here to this plane track right here and then create a plane track, you will now see that it's added a little box, and this is basically going to be where our screen is going to go. And so now all we have to do is just simply come down here and then drag these to our screen, trying to be as precise as possible. You just want to do it in the corners right there, and you do want to do these for all of the points, trying to be as close as possible to your actual screen. And so now that I have the points on, we can actually come throughout this clip and see how well it actually stays on the object. And so if we scrub out, it follows the screen very, very nicely. And so now we are actually done with the tracking. Now here comes the fun part, and that is to actually do the compositing. And so we want to come up to the compositing tab and then check mark this use nodes button. Since we aren't rendering anything in the 3D viewport, we can just go ahead and get rid of this render layers node. Next, we want to actually add in our movie clip that we have, and so we can just do that by adding a movie clip node like this, and then opening, you can click right here since we already imported that into Blender, and then choose our movie clip like that. Now if you have the Node Wrangler add-on installed, you can hold Shift Control and then click to add a viewer node, just so we can get an idea of what that looks like, and then hit V to zoom out. And so now we just have our movie clip. We actually want to add in the footage we want to put on the screen. And so to do that, let's go ahead and add in an image node like this. And then I'm just going to open up a random image, but whatever image you're going to put on the screen, you want to open that. So now in Blender, we want to overlay the two images on top of each other. And so the way we do that is by adding a alpha over node. This is actually the wrong way to do it, but I just kind of wanted to show you to demonstrate the effect that we're going for. And so we want to plug up the image into the bottom socket and then the movie clip into the top socket. And then by holding Shift Control and then clicking, we can click and view this alpha over node. So this is what our image looks like without it tracked into the scene. You can see that the image is on top and the movie clip is below it. That's actually how we want it. And so now let's add in the actual tracking. So to do that, it's very simple. We just want to add in a plane track deform node. Add that between the image and the alpha over. We can go ahead and open up our movie clip and then make the object to the camera, and then set our planar track to be this plane track right here. And then since we're moving around in the scene, we're just going to go ahead and add a bit of motion blur like that. And so this is the result that we got. As you can see, it's the correct orientation as it would be in if it was actually on the TV. But you'll notice it looks a little fake. It looks a little too clean. And so this is where those reflections I was talking about earlier come into play. So alpha over is a really good node for when you want to overlay certain alpha images or movies or render layers, but in our case we don't really want a alpha over. We want to change this to a mix node, and so we're just going to go ahead and delete the alpha over node, and then like I said before, we're going to add in a mix, and then you can plug those up the same way as we did our alpha over, with the image into the bottom socket and the movie clip into the top socket. We can see that we have the image, but now the actual background is black, and so that's not really what we want to do. And we can do that by actually changing our blending mode inside this mix node here. So instead of mix, we simply want to come down and select screen. And then if we take a look throughout our clip, we can actually see some of the reflections in the TV now. If I come throughout it, it should change and be tracked correctly. All the orientation and stuff. You can see the window in my scene, and this looks a lot better than the alpha over node. Okay, so this is our final node setup. The only thing that we have left to do is plug in the final image socket into this composite node like this, so we can actually composite that in the render. But next we're ready to set our render settings and actually render out this animation. So like I said before, since we're not really rendering anything in the viewport, it doesn't really matter which render engine you use because this is just simple compositing, so we don't really worry about the render engine. And also I'm just going to come over here and change the sample count in the render to 1. This just helps me realize when I come back to the project that I haven't really done anything in the viewport itself. We're only dealing with compositing. Another thing we want to double check is that in the color management, our view transform is on standard. This way we just get more accurate colors. And then for the output properties, we want to come over here. You can choose where to save your file. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Next, since this is going to render out so fast, I don't really have to render it in a PNG image sequence, so I'm going to go change that to a FFmpeg video, and then in the encoding section I'm going to change mine to a MP4 file, and then also set the output quality to be high. Now that we have all that set up, the only thing that we have left to do is actually come up here and render the animation. The final result is on the screen right now. In the future, I'm going to be doing a special series on things you can make in Blender with lower spec hardware, so if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to like and subscribe for future videos. Also, I have a new Patreon and Discord. Links to those can be found in the description below. But anyways guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Peace.